me just give it a chance. If the recording on your side, Sheikhna, is good?
Yes, please.
For the QA part?
Yes, you can
Inshallah.
start.
How do we make sure such practices that we talked about don't lead a person to a depressive state, for example? And how can we differentiate between something spiritually good and the devastating practice of, between quotation mark, eating oneself all the time for no reason, which also makes a person an object of manipulation for others?
Yes, very good question. The borderline is whether you are developing so much of sadness that you become passive, or you become more determined to work. Again, we use the example of a student who has exam. This is a good example. So if I am too worried about exam and about my weaknesses, to the extent that I close the book and I say, I am failing, I cannot succeed, I am failing, so I close the book and try crying. Okay, this is not useful. This is very bad. Even this is worse than trying and failing in the exam. At least you have tried. Maybe at least you get few marks. Instead of, for example, getting passing mark, at least something lower than that, but at least you have tried. But if you close the book and don't go for exam and say, I am a failure, this is very bad. But if you are aware of the seriousness of exam, you know some of your weaknesses. For example, this part I didn't understand, this part I didn't listen carefully to the teacher, and this motivates you to work harder. If other people say exam is very easy and they don't study, you study harder. You ask, in the remaining time, questions from your teacher or other people, and try to prepare yourself. This is good. So it shouldn't lead to despair, which is a great sin. Al-ya'su an rawhillah, to be despair from mercy of Allah, is a major sin, and actually one of the greatest ones. And not to be proud of yourself and dismiss the problems and say, I am fine, I am excellent, I am perfect, etc. So it's the border. So never become passive, never become depressed, never think you are a failure, never think you are useless, but also never dismiss the difficulties and say, I am fine, I am good, I am clean, I am pure, I am honest, I am sincere, easily. So for us, the border is very, very fine, very, it's very, narrow. And this is why Amir al-Mu'minin says that al-faqih, kullu al-faqih, a person who has great understanding of Islam, is the one that doesn't make people feel safe from makrullah and doesn't make them depressed. So if you feel that there's no problem, this is problem. If you see there is no chance, again there is problem. So there are problems, but there are also chances. Allah has given you what has given to his awliya. It's not that you have a problem that is only for you, and for example there's something wrong in you, there is something wrong in your soul. No. Of course, as I said, this is for people who keep failing and then try to go back. I said they should ask Allah with istirar. But if you are mashallah strong in your willpower, then it's different story. So I'm saying even with the people who fail, keep failing, still they should be hopeful.
Thanks a lot, Sheikh.
You're
There's
welcome.
a small follow-up with some specific angle that I think our dear sister is looking at. She says the following: usually guilt is a good negative motivator for a manipulated person to make others work for them and do what they want, not what is good for the person and everyone else. So how can we see if it's a positive or negative motivation? She continues and says, some people are permanently guilty and permanently used by everyone around and spend all their energy on what others want. And it's not like voluntary service, but based on blame. It seems that, so this specific angle, work on yourself becomes work for others in ways that may or may not be constructive by a manipulative person who can abuse maybe the state of blame. This question is being asked.
I think these are two different things, because we were talking about something personal between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's different from someone that always feels guilty in the family or in the workplace or etc. We said that between you and Allah, you blame yourself. You complain to Allah about your nafs. As Imam Zain al-Abidin says, أشكو إليك نفسا بالسوء أمارة وإلى الشر مبادرة. So we complain about our nafs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is different from another problem that sometimes people, for example, as a wife, as a husband, as a child, as a brother, always feels guilty and mentions this to other parties, and maybe sometimes they take advantage, or maybe they don't know what to do with such people, So that's different. With respect to the other issue that is mentioned, so you have to find the balance. If you really have failed, it's good to acknowledge and apologize. But if you have not failed, if you have not done something wrong, then why you feel guilty? You shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't, humiliate yourself. Especially if someone is going to take advantage. Someone is taking advantage. Okay, if I have made mistake, I say okay, I apologize. But if I have not made mistake and I see that person is becoming arrogant, I don't say I made mistake just to make that person happy. So balance is very important. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is different, because He's not going to take advantage, and He's someone who honors us more than anyone else. But even with Allah, as I said, we should not lose our hope. Even over there, despair is not good.
Thank you, Sheikh. We have one last general question.
Yes.
And it says the following: when is it permissible, the question says, to end a relationship with a parent?
It's
the question that I'm receiving in the anonymous question is, when is it permissible to end the relationship with a parent?
It's very hard to think of a place that you stop your relation. Because our hadith say that birrul walidain barrain kana aw fajirain. Whether they are good or bad, you have to be kind to them. But if they are asking you to do something wrong, you don't do it. But you don't stop your relation. إن جاهداك على أن تشرك بما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما. For example, they say, give up your iman. Don't say salat. Don't have hijab. Don't, do your wajibat or do haram. Okay, you don't listen to them here, but still you try to keep your relation with them. Try to be respectful. You try to be kind, but Don't listen to wrong things that they ask you. It's very difficult for me to think of totally stopping relation in this time, you know. For example, maybe if, for example, there are parents who, in the time of early Muslims, you know, who were from mushrikeen and were fighting Prophet, and, you know, so the child was on the one side, the father was on the other side. Maybe at that time relation was not working, but even we have that, you know, Rasulullah advised people not to fight against their fathers and let other people do this, and their life would become shortened. So maybe there are very exceptional cases, one can ask me specifically, but in general terms, in what I normally see between people, I don't think there is a place that one has to totally stop relation with parents.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Al-Kareem.
You're welcome.
Inshallah, we proceed to greetings. We received a very blessed message